Anesthesiologists of Reddit, what's something you won't forget hearing from someone that was under? I was giving a young female patient sedation for a routine colonoscopy, and as I pushed the propofol, sleepy medicine, it started to hit her. She sat straight up and yelled to everyone in the procedure room, "I shaved my butt for you," and she flopped down on her pillow and she was asleep. I was coming out of the fog of anesthesia from a colonoscopy. Apparently I didn't recognize my wife and refused her affections, telling her she was pretty but I was married. Got big brownie points for that. My dad asked my mom to pick up his butt cheek so he could fart, and it was too heavy. I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan, so I wear a scrub cap with the Packers name/colors on it. I was doing a pre-op evaluation on a kid who was a big New Orleans Saints fan. And when I walked into the room, his first words to me were "Packers suck." I laughed and continued to prepare him and his family for his redo open heart surgery procedure. Fast forward to surgery a couple days later, and his mom had come back to the OR as he was going to sleep. Given the fact this was a 3 or 4 time redo sternotomy, going into the chest again, he had a high risk of major complications from the surgery. I started to push some meds to have him go to sleep while his mom was holding his hand, and as he drifted off, he said, "Wait, I have to tell my mom something." She got emotional saying how much she loved him, and we were all waiting to hear what he had to say so urgently. I paused giving him the medication, but he was already well on his way to being under, and as he drifted off to sleep, he said, "Packers suck. Kid did great. Hope he is doing well." I had a surgery to remove bone spurs from my big toes in early February of 2005. I woke up while the doctor was grinding the bone down and asked if he thought Donovan McNabb could lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl win. He nodded at the anesthesiologist, and I don't remember anything after that. I gave a patient a 4th dose of ketamine for a pain procedure. He proceeded to tell the room that everyone had turned into cartoon characters, and then he announced he was melting into a wall of butter. Still my finest achievement as a physician. One guy said, before falling asleep, "Whoa, that feels like a dime bag." My husband had knee surgery. After he woke up he half yelled half whispered apple juice, so the nurse gave him apple juice. Several small cups full. He grinned like a toddler and said apple juice and immediately flopped back and went back to sleep for all of 10 minutes until he woke back up gasping that he couldn't breathe. His mom, who I had met maybe 1 or 2 times at this point, went up to the foot of his bed to grab a nurse in the doorway and he bolted upright. That man projectile vomited pure apple juice directly into her face/body/the wall/the door/hallway. I have never seen anything like it in my entire life. His mom stood there soaked in juice vomit, and he just rubbed his eyes and said, "I feel better." Bam. Back to sleep for another 2 hours. Lol. A little girl was going under, and she was holding her mother's hand. She reached out for my hand with her other, and as she was going out she joined mine with her mother's and said, "You would be a nice daddy." I probably went beetroot red as I blushed. My husband woke up from anesthesia after a colonoscopy just after the doctor walked in. He didn't see the doctor and told me, "No blowjob for you," then fell back asleep and ripped a big fart. The doctor looked at me and busted out laughing. He said not to be embarrassed. People say the weirdest things, but this one he'd remember. Was under anesthesia for a breast reduction. As I was coming out, my nurse was talking to me, and apparently I started saying, "OMG, it's an angel, and she looks like Barbie." I kept yelling for Barbie angel, and possibly kept trying to hug her and pet her hair. I cried for her on the way home. She called to check on me later that night and referred to herself as Nurse Barbie Angel. She was the sweetest. I was under general anesthesia to get my gallbladder removed. As I was being wheeled back through the double doors there was a giant TV screen that listed the surgeries going on. I was way too loopy to actually read it, but I swear I saw elbowectomy and started hysterically laughing over the idea of removing an elbow and being left with a floppy arm. Apparently what I actually said was elbow jello, and then passed out. Patient here came out of anesthesia and heard Got I Somebody that I used to know playing in the recovery room. I asked my significant other why they were playing it at like 10x the normal speed, and the nurse just goes, "Okay, so she's not ready to go home yet, lol." This guy I was dating, he asked me to take him to get his wisdom teeth removed. He told me that anesthesia doesn't affect him a lot, and we were supposed to go on a road trip the next day. So anyway, he gets wheeled out of the dentist by an old nurse. I'm behind the driver's seat and I see him smacking his lips looking up at the sky. She opens my car door and he said, "I love her. I love her." He then proceeded to ask me to marry him several times. He tried to pull out his gauze and I told him stop, and he said, "Man, this bee is bossy." Then he wanted a milkshake. I would suggest a place and he would scream no. Finally we agree on a place and he tells me he'll give me directions. I drive for 15 minutes before I ask him what we are doing, and he said he has no idea. We're in the drive-thru and he says, "I have something for you." I swear I thought he had bought me a ring the way he had been proposing for last hour. It was his newly extracted teeth. They let me keep them. "I want you to have them." He lived on base at the time and was yelling at the gate while they checked his ID for them to hurry up. I finally get him to his room. In bed, he's happily eating his milkshake with a spoon. His mouth was a mess of blood and milkshake. He asked me for a kiss. I gave him a peck. We're married now. I'm an anesthesiologist. The best story was a 40-some-year-old woman for appendectomy said while I'm giving the propofol to induce anesthesia, she said, "Oh, I don't remember it tasting like that before," slurred. I said, "What does it taste like?" Since propofol doesn't usually elicit a taste reaction, she almost yelled, "Is it nuts?" and was promptly under anesthesia thereafter. There have been other stories, but this one has the entire OR staff rolling laughing for minutes after she was under. My husband had to undergo a colonoscopy, and when he came around he started aggressively grilling the staff about Abraham Lincoln. He isn't a historian or anything. He works as a business analyst and knows next to nothing about Abraham Lincoln. Bonus story: one time he took Ambien and got super messed up. Initially told me that he couldn't walk up the stairs to bed because he was a transformer and his legs had turned to wheels. Finally got him upstairs and he made the observation that if peach trees could sing to each other like whales it would be beautiful. I bet they would sing Adele. Then he burst into tears. My mom woke up from dental surgery, and when we were leaving the surgeon's office, he gave her a goodie bag with floss and a toothbrush and stuff, and the whole way home she kept asking if she could eat the candy that the dentist gave her. Every time I told her there was no candy, she looked so heartbroken, like a little kid when their goldfish dies or something. Then we stopped at CVS on the way home, and she wandered off. I found her in the candy aisle holding a giant bag of fun-sized candy, and when I told her to put it back on the shelf she dropped it on the floor and galloped away laughing at me. I was 17 at the time, but got my wisdom teeth taken out. Everything went as planned, but I woke up and remember seeing the oral surgeon, me being dosed with grade A giggle juice, and having no idea WTF I was doing. Asked her if she would like to grab boba sometime. I've never been so embarrassed in my life. 5 years later, she let me shadow for part of my dental school shadowing requirement and is giving me a law for applications next cycle at a boba date. But all things considered, she was a great mentor.